Hello everyone, welcome back to the Steam Completion Challenge. This is a challenge in which I am beating each one of the games in my 1500 plus Steam library. If you're interested in seeing what I've played up to this point, check out the playlist in the description or in the card in the corner. Anyways, on to today's episode, Pac-Man Championship Edition DX+. To be honest, if you're here, you know who Pac-Man is. At least, I would hope you do, unless this is being used as some sort of archive in the distant future where all of humanity turned into some sort of mushrooms. So in the case that you do not know about Mr. Man, let me give you a brief history. Long ago, back when arcades were common and Blockbuster was just a baby, there was an icon that ruled the earth, and that was our beloved Pac-Man. He was the king of Namco and had a ton of arcade machines where he would run around a maze, eating pellets and the occasional ghost. All was well for our hero until he got away from his mainstream games and went on to make a ton of spin-off games, time and time again for all sorts of consoles. You can really find Pac-Man on pretty much all platforms ever existed. He's even made his way to casinos. I will get to that a little later. But despite all this recognizability, the original game had rarely gotten a refresh in many years. That wasn't until 2007 when on the Xbox Live Marketplace, the Pac-Man Championship Edition was released. This was a fast-paced arcade-style Pac-Man that had been lacking in most forms for a long time. This game took the original formula, but made it about getting the most points in a certain amount of time with brand new visuals and effects. The 2007 version is pretty close to the one that I'm covering now, minus a couple changes that were made a few years later. Essentially, the additional DX Plus tag added some DLCs and the Windows port of the game. Obviously, Pac-Man still is a headlining character in the video game world, being playable in Mario Kart arcades and in Super Smash Bros. Fans of the Pac definitely haven't forgotten about him. So what does Pac-Man Championship Edition DX Plus bring to the table? Well, for starters, there is no eat all the pellets to go to the next maze mechanic. Instead, you stay on one maze and have to eat pellets on the left and right side. In clearing a side of pellets, the opposite side flushes with new pellets to go through. This of course is done with the harassment of the ghosts who will try to stop you. One addition to the DX Plus version of this game is the sleeping ghosts alongside the maze, which are used to chase Pac-Man after he flies past them. Every once in a while you're able to get a huge train going, and with a power pellet you can rack up a huge score. One of the main things the game uses is some sort of timer mechanic. See, each of the mazes in the game are predetermined. If you select a certain course and challenge, it will play the same every time. It makes sense that this is not random, as the game was meant to see how you fared against other players in the same scenarios. Also, the original Pac-Man was not random either. Each of the ghosts were programmed in a way to make them behave in certain conditions. In terms of this game, there are a few different courses to choose from, each containing its own set of challenges. In total, this game has over 100 different scenarios to go through. With these challenges, there ends up being quite a bit of replayability, with the added goal of getting the highest score, of course, at least out of your friends. But how does one beat Pac-Man Championship Edition? Well, I'm glad you asked. Frankly, there are a few different routes to consider. 1. You beat every single challenge in the game. 2. You get all the achievements. 3. You get all the medals associated with the game. Or 4. You unlock each of the courses. So what was my approach? Well, before getting to this game for review, I actually already unlocked all the achievements, but not the medals or all the courses. Which was weird to me that you can actually 100% this game on Steam without hardly seeing any of the courses and mazes. So I decided to take a look into the medals, which they seemed relatively reasonable, but I found out pretty early on that you actually have to connect the game to a Facebook account to get these medals. But also the feature itself is bugged and doesn't really work, and of course the game's not really supported anymore, so they're not fixing it anytime soon. So getting all the courses seemed like a good start for me. I picked back up my game on the highway course. In this I tried the time trial challenge, which gave me a minute to get 8 fruits, which I was able to do in about 28 seconds.
Your produce alone has been worth the trip.
This is one of the side challenges the game offers apart from the main score attack mode. I did a few of these in a row, which all pretty much serve the same game, minus the overlays and the placement of pellets, fruit, and enemies. After completing the sign challenges, I went back to Highway and did the main score attack here. This particular segment lasts for about 5 minutes and focuses solely on getting a high score. As your score increases, the bottom speed setting also goes up, making everything on the field move faster. The typical means of getting a large boost in speed in this mode is when you eat an entire train of ghosts in short succession. And as you do go faster, more ghosts start to spawn in the cage in the middle of the screen as well, adding just another layer of challenge and obstacles to the game. The max speed that you can achieve in this mode is about 30, which is pretty satisfying to pull off. One of the other abilities you have are in forms of these bombs, which can be used to stop a train in its tracks and send it back to the cage before coming back after you. When using the bombs, it will also reduce your game speed a tad, which can be brought back up. After the time is up and a certain score is achieved, you can now move on to the next course, which in this case is the junction. So now what? Well, just rinse and repeat the score attack mode. Now I could say that each subsequent mode is slightly different and unique, which they are, but there isn't really a point in showing off the same gameplay loop more than twice for our purposes. One of the cool aspects of each course is the additions they do make to the gameplay loop. For instance, in Spiral, the next course, after each fruit pickup, the maze itself changes, making it less predictable and more reactionary. Besides that, after a few more courses in that fashion, there's a course called Championship 1, which from my understanding is the original Championship Edition mode for Xbox Live. What gives it away is that there's no sleeping ghost present in this mode. Another main thing in the gameplay loop I forgot to mention is deaths. Per stage, you only get a certain amount of lives, which can be collected as well with enough points, but you automatically fail if you use up all your lives. The main penalty to dying is this massive reduction in game speed. But dying in general isn't too hard to do though, as there is a built-in bullet time effect when you get too close to a ghost. After the Championship 1 course, there weren't any more courses to go through on the score attack mode. For the most part, the rest of the game's offerings are in the terms of the time trials. In my opinion, there is a final stage though. This is the course Darkness on Championship 2 mode. This stage is completely dark, except the glows of the ghosts, pellets, fruits, and Pac-Man. The stage gives you 10 minutes to gather 34 fruits with a start on a high speed. It also ramps up the top speed as well, which goes up to 50, which is nearly uncontrollable. I ended up beating this last mode with 6 minutes to spare. Now going back to the original question, how do you beat this game? I personally think the way to beat this is by seeing each of the courses and collecting all the achievements on Steam. I think you do need to do both in order to have a more fuller experience than just getting the achievements on the first few levels alone. In terms of the challenges, you can do with the time trials, but I don't think it's necessary to complete them all to beat the game. They make for a nice add-on, but it's not critical to the game's purpose. As with the original Pac-Man, this game is about replayability, and there are lots of options caked into this game to make it cater to most players. Beyond that, let's go over the Steam stats for this title. If you were to buy this game on Steam, it would run you $9.99. You can also get a bundle which includes all the DLC for the game for $14.99. The DLC includes some more courses, alternative skins like Dig Dug and Rally X. It also includes some of the other soundtrack files that can be used in-game. There is a third bundle to mention, which is the Pac-Man collection, which includes this game, Arcade Game Series Pac-Man, Pac-Man Championship Edition 2, Pac-Man 256, Pac-Man Museum Plus, and Pac-Man World Repack, which is a remaster of the original Pac-Man World, which was a 3D platform released back in the late 90s for various consoles. This bundle costs over $50, but does have some quality titles. Outside of the price, the Steam version also includes online leaderboards and full controller support. As I mentioned before, there are a total of 12 achievements available on Steam, which these are pretty easy to complete in less than 2 hours of playtime. In terms of my playtime with this game, I spent about 3 hours total from my first bit of playing back in 2019 to the more recent playthrough where I got all the remaining courses. I would say that this game is a pretty good experience overall, but I can't exactly justify it at the $9.99 price without the DLC. I personally recommend waiting for a Steam sale to get this game with the DLC included. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing so you can stay up to date on the challenge. I also opened a Patreon if anyone wanted and is able to support my content. Right now there are mainly Twitch stream VODs here, but I'm hopefully gonna put more on there later. Anyways, the next episode of the challenge will be on Boombox Blue, so please stay tuned for that in the upcoming weeks, and thank you again for watching.